You're not lazy. You're addicted. Let me say that again because you need to hear it without the shame. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not a lost cause. You're just hooked on something. And that something has a name. It's called digital morphine. Every notification, every red dot, every dopamine hit when someone liked your comment, shared your post, validated your existence in 140 characters. We're not procrastinating anymore. We're sedated. We're walking around with invisible IV drips pumping instant gratification straight into our frontal lobe, while our dreams sit in a Google Doc we haven't opened since January. Here's what nobody tells you about procrastination. It's not a time management problem. It's an emotion management problem. The frontal systems of your brain, the part responsible for executive function, for planning, for self-regulation, they don't shut down because you're weak. They shut down because you're uncomfortable. And your brain hates discomfort more than it hates failure. So when that task feels heavy, when that project feels too big, when that conversation feels too hard, your brain doesn't see a task, your brain sees a predator. And what do we do with predators? We run, we hide, we scroll, we open Instagram, we reorganize our bookshelf, we deep clean the kitchen grout at 11:47 p.m. We don't call it running, we call it getting ready to start. But here's the nightmare, and I need you to really sit with this. The nightmare isn't failure. The nightmare is reaching 60, 70, 80 years old, or lying on your deathbed and saying, I should have started, I should have invested, I should have made it work, I should have forgiven them, I should have forgiven myself. The nightmare isn't that you tried and lost. The nightmare is that you had journals full of dreams and you used them as coasters. So today, I'm not here to give you a pep talk about believing in yourself. You've had those. You've screenshot them. You've saved them to your camera roll. They're in a folder called Motivation next to your screenshots of meal prep ideas from 2019. Information without execution is just entertainment. And we've been treating motivation like Netflix. So here it is. 7 winning steps to overcome the invisible addiction that's stealing your life. Not theory, not philosophy. Real psychology, real execution, real examples from someone who still fights this fight every single day. Step 1. Stop calling it procrastination. Call it what it is. Here's what I want you to do today. Go find a mirror. Not your front-facing camera, an actual mirror. Look at yourself and say this out loud. I am not lazy. I am avoiding discomfort, and that is something I can fix. You cannot treat a condition you refuse to diagnose. Some of you have been walking around for years wearing I'm a procrastinator like it's a zodiac sign, like it's permanent, like it's your personality. It's not. It's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. Real example. Sarah had a book inside her for 7 years. 7 years. She talked about it at dinner parties. She had the title picked out. She had the cover visualized. She had the dedication page written in her head. But every time she sat down to write, panic, discomfort. I need to research more. The timing isn't right. I'm not ready. She wasn't avoiding writing. She was avoiding the possibility that she might write it and it still wouldn't be enough. The day she stopped calling herself a writer with writer's block and started calling herself someone who's terrified of not being good enough, that's the day she wrote the first sentence. 7 years, 1 sentence. Because naming the demon shrinks it. Step 2, understand the morphine drip. You know why social media wins every single time? Because it's not fighting fair. Your brain has a reward system designed to keep you alive. Eat the berry, dopamine. Survive the tiger, dopamine. Connect with the tribe, dopamine. Instagram didn't invent addiction, it just industrialized it. Every swipe is a slot machine. Every notification is a variable reward. Every red dot is a trained trigger that makes your brain say something important is waiting for you. There's nothing important waiting for you. There's just more morphine. Real example. Marcus told me he couldn't focus for more than 12 minutes. 12 minutes. He thought he had ADHD. He thought he needed medication. He thought something was fundamentally wrong with his brain. I asked him one question. Where's your phone when you work? On his desk, face up. We moved it to his bedroom, not off the desk, different room. First day, withdrawal. He reached for it 17 times. 17 times his hand touched empty air. Day 3, he worked for 45 uninterrupted minutes. He didn't have ADHD. He had a slot machine in his pocket. You're not broken. You're just playing a rigged game, and nobody told you the house always wins. Step 3, shrink the task until it's embarrassingly small. Here's what we get wrong about motivation. We think we need it before we start. You don't need motivation to start. You need momentum. And momentum doesn't come from big leaps. Momentum comes from the tiniest possible lean. The 2-minute rule is real. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Not add to list, not I'll do it later. Do it now. But here's the advanced version nobody talks about. If the task takes longer than 2 minutes, commit to just 2 minutes of it. That's it. Not the whole report, just the file name and 1 sentence. Not the whole workout, just put on the shoes. Not the whole conversation, just dial the number. Real example. Elena had a tax panic attack every March, every single year. She'd stare at the shoebox of receipts, she'd feel her chest tighten, she'd open Instagram. I told her, don't do your taxes, just open the shoebox and take everything out. She did that.
Now don't do your taxes. Just put the receipts in 3 piles. She did that. Now don't do your taxes. Just staple the piles together. She did that. 4 hours later, her taxes were done. She never did her taxes. She just kept doing the next embarrassingly small step. You don't climb Everest in one heroic leap. You put one foot in front of the other until the air gets thin, and suddenly you're above the clouds. Step 4. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. This one's gonna sting. There is no perfect time. There never was. There never will be. You're waiting for Monday. You're waiting for the first of the month. You're waiting after the holiday. You're waiting for when you feel ready. You're waiting for when the kids are older. You're waiting for when you have more money. You're waiting for when you have more time. You're waiting for permission that was never yours to receive. Real example. David wanted to propose. He had the ring. He had the speech memorized. He knew she was the one. But he kept waiting for the perfect sunset, for the perfect restaurant, for the perfect moment when his hands wouldn't sweat and his voice wouldn't shake. 3 years. 3 years of waiting for perfect. She didn't wait. She moved on. Not because she didn't love him, because she couldn't tell the difference between waiting for perfect and not that sure. He proposed to an empty apartment. Perfectionism isn't about high standards, it's about fear. You're not waiting for the right time, you're waiting for the guarantee that it won't hurt if it fails. That guarantee doesn't exist. It never did. Step 5. Use if-then scripts to bypass your feelings. Here's something fascinating about the human brain. It hates ambiguity. If you tell yourself, I'll work on my project today, your brain hears 13 different possible timelines and 0 accountability. But if you tell yourself, if it's 9 a.m., then I open my laptop and write for 25 minutes, your brain hears a command. This is called implementation intention. It's not motivation, it's programming. Real example. James struggled with the gym for 6 years. 6 years of I'll go tomorrow. 6 years of paid membership, 0 attendance. I asked him to stop trying to want to go to the gym. Wanting wasn't working. I said, create a script. He wrote, if my alarm goes off at 5:30 a.m., then I put my feet on the floor. If my feet are on the floor, then I stand up. If I'm standing, then I put on my shoes. If my shoes are on, then I walk out the door. He stopped asking himself, do I feel like going to the gym? He never felt like going, but he followed the script anyway. That was 18 months ago. He's never missed a Monday. You don't need to feel ready. You just need a trigger and a response. Step 6. Forgive yourself for yesterday. This is the one nobody talks about. We think guilt is productive. We think beating ourselves up will somehow shame us into action. It won't. It never has. It never will. Guilt doesn't create discipline. Guilt creates avoidance. You procrastinated yesterday? Okay. You scrolled for 3 hours instead of working on your dreams? Okay. Now what? Shame says, you're a failure. Why even bother trying today? Self-compassion says, that wasn't your best moment. What can we learn? What can we adjust? What can we try differently? Real example. Michelle was a chronic, I'll start Monday person. Every Sunday night, she'd plan the perfect week. Every Tuesday, she'd be off track. Every Wednesday, she'd feel like garbage. Every Thursday, she'd give up until next Monday. The cycle repeated for 4 years. One day, she missed a Tuesday, and instead of saying, I ruined it, might as well quit, she said, okay, that block didn't work. Let's try a shorter block tomorrow. Not self-flagellation, not self-loathing, just recalibration.
That was the week she finally finished her certification. Not because she suddenly had iron willpower, because she stopped making her identity dependent on her consistency. You're not your worst Tuesday. Step 7, build the porch, not the cathedral. You know what stops most people from starting? They're trying to build a cathedral. They see the vaulted ceilings, they see the stained glass, they see the intricate carvings that took generations to complete. And they think, I could never do that. Of course you can't. Not today, not this week, probably not this year. But you can build one brick, and then another brick, and then another brick. Real example, the Pomodoro technique isn't just a productivity hack, it's a psychological contract with yourself. 25 minutes, that's it. Not the whole project, not the whole career, not the whole life transformation. Just 25 minutes of focus, then 5 minutes of breathing, then another 25. It works because it respects your brain's limitations. Your brain can handle 25 minutes of discomfort. It can't handle, I need to change my entire life starting now. Real example, Carlos wanted to start a business. He spent 6 months researching, 6 months watching YouTube videos, reading Reddit threads, taking notes on successful entrepreneurs. I asked him, what's the smallest version of this business that you could start in one day? He said, I could make one post offering one service to one person for free. He did that. That one free client turned into 3 paid clients. Those 3 turned into 12. Those 12 turned into a full-time income. He didn't build a business in a day. He built one porch, and then people wanted to see the rest of the house. Here's what I need you to understand. I'm not standing here telling you this from the mountaintop. I'm in the trenches with you. Some days I win, some days my phone wins. Some days I write for 4 hours and feel like I can move mountains. Some days I open Instagram at 8:13 a.m. and don't look up until my coffee is cold and I don't even remember picking up the phone. That's not failure, that's being human. The difference isn't that some people never procrastinate. The difference is that some people have learned to stop weaponizing their past against themselves. You can use your mistakes as evidence that you're broken, or you can use your mistakes as data. Data tells you what didn't work. Data tells you where the resistance lives. Data tells you what needs to change. But data only works if you stop calling yourself the problem. You are not the problem. You are the solution that hasn't been fully deployed yet. Your past is not your destiny. I know. If we pulled up your history right now, we'd find some brokenness, we'd find some trauma, we'd find some failures, we'd find some empty places where dreams used to live. But we'd also find survival. We'd find every morning you got out of bed when it would have been easier to stay under the covers. We'd find every time you tried again after life knocked you flat. We'd find every quiet victory nobody clapped for. That counts. That has always counted. You're still here. You can hear my voice. You're still looking for answers. That's not weakness. That's someone who hasn't given up. And that's the only qualification you need. So, here's your moment. Not next Monday, not January 1st, not when you feel ready, not when the conditions are perfect. Now, the real you is breathing down your neck, begging you to manifest, not the knockoff version that scrolls and waits and wishes. The real you, the one that's been sitting in the dark saying, when is it going to be my turn? It's your turn. You've waited long enough, you've studied enough,
You've taken enough courses, you've saved enough screenshots, you've filled enough journals. Now, you just have to do. If this hits you where you live, I need you to do something right now. Not later, not after you finish this video, not after you check one more notification. Now, go to the comments and type 4 words. I'm all in. Not I'll try, not I hope so, not maybe someday. I'm all in. This is your public declaration. This is your stake in the ground. This is you telling yourself and everyone else watching that you're done dating your potential. You're ready to marry it. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button. Not because I need the number, because you need the reminder. You need this message waiting for you when the morphine drip calls your name at 2:37 p.m. on a Tuesday when you're tired and the task is hard and quitting feels like the reasonable option. Subscribe. Turn on the notification bell. Make this your daily IV of something real. Because the world isn't waiting for perfect people. The world is waiting for people who finally get out of their own way. That's you. Now, get to work. You owe you.